What's up, self-healers? Lisa Lightfeather here. Welcome to my channel, Closing the Gap, where we make a conscious effort to meet you where you're at on your healing and your spiritual journey. Thank you for being here, and happy hump day to everyone. I hope that you are enjoying your week. Today's topic is a bit sensitive, very sensitive actually, because I don't want to overstep my boundaries when it comes to vulnerable populations. But something is coming to my attention in my mind's eye, right, about narcissism and this spirit being irritated and coming to the surface, and narcissists starting to try to change the playbook. For example, all of a sudden there's hundreds of self-aware narcissists. All of a sudden they're self-aware. The spirit of narcissism is being irritated. And so there's another population that I see the narcissist mimicking or coming after. And this is the population of people who have neurodivergent differences. Neurodivergent differences. And so, although the field of psychology and counseling and things of that sort has been stagnant for a really long time, they are slowly but surely implementing new concepts, new neurodivergent differences of people, and they're studying different things in people, right? So a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s are now being diagnosed with autism, being on the spectrum of autism, right? Well, there are a lot of neurodivergent symptoms that someone who is on the spectrum of autism have that for the untrained eye, and I'm speaking book-wise, DSM-5-wise, the psychological aspects of it, and I'm also speaking spiritually, may miss. So today I kind of wanted to tap into that topic. Now, this is a huge topic because I don't want to overstep my boundaries with vulnerable populations, right? But I think it's important for the empath to know the differences between a neurodivergent difference in a person, right? A neurodivergent mental health issue in a person versus a narcissistic symptoms, right? Because I don't want the empath to get caught in the crossfires and then be entertaining a narcissist that is under the pretense of being on the autistic spectrum. Autism is a very real thing, right? And a lot of us have autistic traits, right? So some of the key differences between autism and narcissism are as follows. Now, I do have a list because I want to stay on track. I don't want to go off on some tangent of how I feel about narcissists versus what's factual about people who are on the spectrum of autism. I believe that somebody that I love very dearly is on the spectrum of autism. Yeah. And so I don't want to be disrespectful of this. Now, they have not been diagnosed with autism, but I can just feel it in my spirit that there's an autistic aspect to this person. Right. And so I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody who may be on the autistic spectrum, right? But here are some key differences between the narcissist and someone who has autism. So one of the main things that you want to look at, this is the core of it, is that people who are narcissistic do not have the capacity to empathize, but they don't have the capacity. They have the capacity to mimic empathy, but they don't have the capacity to truly empathize, right? That's the narcissistic side. People who are autistic, they have a hard time connecting to other people's emotions. But if you bring it to their attention and say, oh, that hurt me when you said that, they will put forth effort in trying to understand what the other person is feeling, and they will feel sad that they actually hurt someone else. So in this whole empathy thing, the narcissist will mimic empathy with the statue face and but you don't feel the energy behind the empathy. It's just a mimic. It's like a mannequin pretending to be empathetic. But when the autistic person does something that hurts someone else, they may not register in their mind that they've done something that hurts someone else, because when you're on the autistic spectrum, you don't really get social norms. And so a person that's on the spectrum may say something that hurts someone else, but they don't really catch it that they've hurt that person. And the other person says, hey, you hurt my feelings. Then the autistic person says, oh, they have the capacity to say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I hurt your feelings. Because the autistic person that's on the spectrum may not register with social norms. An autistic person is very honest, and they can be very bold, and they can lack tact, right? Because they don't register with the social norms. They may lack tact. They may say something to the effect of, oh, that color is not pretty on you. And then when you say, oh, well, this is one of my favorite colors, that kind of hurt my feelings when you said that. They'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. They have the capacity to say, I'm sorry. They have the capacity to apologize. And there's an innocence to it. Almost like a childlike innocence to it. So the first thing is that the autistic person that's on the autistic spectrum has the capacity to think about what they've said or done that may have hurt somebody else. The narcissistic person doesn't care. And they don't have the capacity to show genuine empathy. The autistic person has the capacity to show genuine empathy. They just may go around it in a different way. Another example may be that someone expresses to an autistic person, hey, oh my God, I feel so bad. I'm late to work because my dog got hit by a car. The autistic person may respond to this. A person that isn't on the spectrum may say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But an autistic person may respond with, my dog got hit by a car too. Because what the autistic person is doing is they're remembering a time that the same thing happened to them. And so instead of saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry, they may recall a time that they felt the same way as the person in front of them is feeling. How might a narcissistic person react to someone coming in and saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm late. My dog got hit by a car. A narcissistic person might say, well, what kind of dog was it? Oh, it was a mixed terrier and Chihuahua. Oh, well, that dog isn't worth much. It's a mutt, so you can just go get another one. Or if the dog was a full-bred Frenchie that's worth money, then the narcissistic person might say, oh, wow, you lost a lot of money with that one. When the autistic person might respond with, oh, my dog died too, or my dog got hit by a car as well. It's not that the autistic person doesn't have empathy. They're empathizing with the person, but they're empathizing on a spectrum of autism. So they don't really get the social norms of how to respond to someone grieving their dog dying. But that's their way of showing empathy. So an autistic person will they just respond differently. A narcissistic person will just disregard the feelings of the person. An autistic person may be very factual. My dog died too. Very awkward. but not hurtful. And if the person does get hurt by that, then the autistic person has the capacity to say, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just know that my dog died too." You know what I mean? Okay, so it's very difficult to try to voice. The narcissistic person has the ability to mimic empathy. The autistic person doesn't have the ability to mimic empathy. They have the ability to express their empathy in a different manner. So another thing that they will do, let's see here, because like I said, this is a heavy topic, and so I don't want to disrespect any vulnerable populations. So I have researched it pretty deeply. So the narcissistic person, when it comes to eye contact, they may not make eye contact. And if they do, it's because they're in a situation where all eyes are on them and they have to mimic a certain type of energy. And so they overthink it. And they make extreme eye contact with the person, something I refer to as a statue face. Yeah. And because they're trying to mimic whatever the situation is. They're trying to seem like they are engaged, like they are interested in whatever the topic may be. An autistic person may not make eye contact because they're socially awkward. A narcissistic person may not make eye contact because they're grandiose and you are below me and I don't need to look at you. I don't need to give you eye contact. But an autistic person might not make eye contact because they are socially awkward and they get overstimulated. And direct eye contact can be a form of overstimulation for the autistic person. Now, an autistic person that does make direct eye contact, they're studying the person. They're trying to figure out the social norm in that moment. Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? What am I supposed to be saying right now? How am I supposed to be responding? It's like their brain is just constantly going and trying to figure out what the social norms are because they have been chastised. The autistic person has more likely been the victim and scapegoated and cast out because they are just socially awkward. Now, the narcissistic person is very grandiose. They want to be the center of attention. They want to be the center of the conversation. They want all eyes on me. A narcissistic person, not so much. They want to be liked and they want friends and things of that sort, but they may fade into the background because trying to figure out the proper social norms is exhausting and it drains the autistic person versus the narcissistic person who feeds on being in social interactions and feeds on being with people. The autistic person may draw back with their video games or with their art or with their making train models or painting or whatever it is that they do. They may focus intently on whatever they have mastered, whatever has their attention. Yeah. When the narcissistic person needs to go from person to person to person, they want to be in groups. They want to be in these overly stimulating situations. When it comes to people that are intercourse and things of that sort, sexual energy, the narcissistic person may be in things like swinging and polyamorous and having several mates and they need to feed on that energy. That would drive an autistic person crazy. Because it's too much, it's overstimulating for an autistic person. If you go into a narcissist's house and they have big 3x4 pictures of themselves all over the walls, it's all about them. And you go into an autistic person's house, they may have whatever it is that they are interested in on the wall. So say, for example, if they're interested in model trains, they may have pictures of trains all over their walls. Because that's what stimulates their brain. That's what stimulates their creativity, is the making of the model trains. But the narcissistic person will have pictures of themselves, like these grandiose pictures of themselves painted all over the walls, or it just has to do with them. If you go into an autistic person's house and you move the furniture around, it will be overstimulating for them because they like things to stay the same way. Yeah? Because that's their comfort zone. They found a comfort zone and they like it to stay the same way. So if you go into a narcissistic child's room and you repaint the walls and you change their bed around and you put on new sheets and a new blanket and stuff like that, they may respond with this confusion and they may respond with disappointment. Or they may have a temper tantrum. Why did you change my room around? Because they need things to be the same and consistent. If you go into a narcissistic person's home and you change something, you move something, they will respond out of anger because it is a sign that you are not falling under their control. And they control their area. They control the energy. I'm going to make a video on how the narcissist is either extremely, extremely clean or extremely, extremely nasty. And it's a form of them controlling the energy, controlling the area. So if you live with a narcissist and you decide, I'm going to change the living room around today, they may come in and be angry that you changed the living room around and you didn't inform them first. And why are you moving stuff? This is my house. I'm the man of this house, or whatever the case may be. I'm the queen of this house. How dare you change it? This is my place. This is my space. When an autistic person may come in and feel confused and unattached, detached from the area because everything is different now. When they went to school, the house was one way, but then when they came home, mom decided to change the house around. And the autistic child may act out of character. Let's see here. Autistic people may mimic you, but what they're doing is they're mimicking you because they're trying to figure out the social norms. And so they may mimic the people around them, right? This is a consistent and ongoing thing where they mimic the people around them, or they may mimic the other children around them. Because, like I said, one of the key things with being on the autistic spectrum is that they don't have the capacity to engage with what's considered normal in society. And so they find this out really quickly. An autistic child can be diagnosed at 3 and 2 and 4 years old. They won't diagnose narcissism at 2 and 3 and 4 years old because all children are self-centered. All children think that they are the center of the world. All children think that they should come first. But the autistic child can be diagnosed at a very young age. They fixate on things. And they may collect the things that they fixate on. Yeah? So the fact that I kind of lost my train of thoughts here. Let me see. That's why I have notes, because I knew I would lose my train of thought on this topic. An autistic child has the ability to feel shame, but they feel it in a different way. Right? When a narcissist feels shame, it equates to rage. It equates to narcissistic collapse. They go into once they've been exposed about something or they got caught doing something and it's public and everybody knows about it, they go into rage, and then they go into a narcissistic collapse where they can barely function because the narcissist has been exposed. The mask has fell off in some way. When an autistic child or autistic person, adult, child, whatever, feels shame, they feel shame in a way that they try to fix what's happened. Say, for example, I don't like that color on you. It doesn't go with you. That color, I don't like it. They might say that color, I don't like that color. And then you say, oh, well, this is my favorite color. I'm sorry you feel that way. And then the narcissist, the empath, the autistic person can feel that they've said something that wasn't socially correct, right? And so once the autistic person can feel that they've done something that isn't socially correct, then they feel shame. They feel bad about that, and they might say, "I'm sorry." You know what I'm saying? Like they might say that, "I'm sorry," or I just don't have anything that color, or something like that, right? But the narcissistic person, when they are called out, and somebody, they say, the narc says, "Oh, I don't like that color on you. It doesn't fit you." And then the empath might say, "You always have something to say about what I wear." Now, no doubt that the narcissist will not feel shame about that. That's just everyday conversation for them. But let's just say that the autistic person does something like, let's say the autistic person steals something, or they take something that doesn't belong to them. The autistic person loves feathers or trains, but I'm using a feather because I always have my feather here with me. They might like feathers, and the autistic person might take it, and then someone says, "Hey, that's my feather," and then the autistic person, oh. They don't register that they just stole something. They just register that they like feathers or they like trains, and they just pick up the train and walk away with it. If a narcissist steals something and someone says, "Hey, that's my feather," or "That's my train," and they call the narcissist out like that, then the narcissist will feel shame. But not because they regret taking the other person's property, but because they've been exposed. So you see how complicated that this can get. So the empath, the autistic person misses social cues. They miss the social cues. They don't get it. They don't get it that telling someone that color is not pretty on you it may hurt their feelings, or they don't get it saying that taking the train that they see or the feather that they found without asking anyone is something is wrong with that. But the narcissist does not miss social cues. As a matter of fact, they study it in great detail. They study body language. They study the energy of the person, because they want to know what makes this person. They're trying to manipulate the person. So they study the body language of the person. They study their responses. They study their emotions. They study their energy. And they're doing this to learn better how to manipulate the person, how better to feed on their energy. And so the autistic person misses the whole energy cues. They miss it. They miss the whole body language cues, depending on where they are on the spectrum. They will miss the body language of, "Oh, I don't like that color on you," and the person might kind of shrink back like, "Oh, wow," you know. The autistic person will miss that shrinkage, or the uncomfortable of the person wearing the color, if that makes sense. The narcissistic person will zoom in on that shrinkage. "I don't like that color on you," says the narcissist. The person shrinks a little bit. The narcissist moves in. "Oh, it bothered her that I don't like that color on her. So now I can suck the energy from her because she's vulnerable." The autistic person will miss that shrinkage. They might say, "I don't like that color on you," and then they'll just walk over there and start playing with their train. Versus the narcissistic person that will sit there and feed on the fact that you felt like you needed to shrink. So those are some of the differences in autism and narcissism, because the narcissist is now diving into this vulnerable population and pretending to be such, hiding their narcissism as being autistic. I've just been undiagnosed all these years. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. I think it's just another way for them to merge into another vulnerable population so that they can keep their mask on longer. And I think it's sad, because the autistic community is a beautiful community, right? But they're a vulnerable community. I'm happy that more and more people are being diagnosed with autism, because it kind of gives people that haven't been really knowing what's going on with themselves, and to have a name to it is a beautiful thing, because now if you have a name to it, now you know why you do certain things. But the narcissist is a vampire of vulnerable populations, and the autistic community is another vulnerable population that the narcissist will move in on and pretend to be, so that they can stay the evil entity that they are. Remember, this is a spirit. Speaking of spirit, let's look at it from a spiritual perspective. Spiritually, the energy of a narcissist is dark and calculated. It's draining. They have envy and jealousy. They rejoice in other people's pain, and they switch up. They have the capacity to switch up in different situations. They can switch up in different situations, meaning that they can mimic empathy in one situation. They can be a certain way in public, around people in public. They can be a certain way, right? They can pretend to be charming and charismatic, but behind closed doors, they switch up into something else. Autistic people carry an innocent energy. It's an awkward energy that they carry. They're consistent. They're the same way in public that they are at home. They don't have the capacity to switch up and be something different in public and then get home and become something dark. No, the autistic person is consistent. They're consistent in public and they're consistent at home. The autistic person is more likely to be the victim of a narcissist. Now, there is evidence that there is a combination. Somebody can be narcissistic and autistic. That's a different topic. I'm speaking about the narcissist who pretends to be autistic so that they can keep their mask on, that they can keep being abusive, they can keep being degrading, they can keep being parasites. And then the empath or another autistic person may be like, oh, they can't help it. If they can switch up, if they can change it, if they can be something in public to where they can be charismatic and charming and all that stuff, and then they get home and they start showing autistic tendencies, or they get home and they start showing abusive tendencies, they switch up on you, they're not autistic. Because autistic people don't have the capacity to switch it up in their coming and going. They're autistic all the time. Narcissists have the capacity to switch the mask, to be one thing in public, to be one thing at home, to be one thing at the job, to be one thing with their intimate partner, to be one thing with their children. Autistic people don't have that capacity. They're consistently the same, innocent, awkward. Yes, they can be rude, they can be blunt, they can be bold, they can lack tact, but it's because they do not understand the social norms. They don't have the capacity to understand the social norms. Narcissists understand social norms. That's how they're able to switch up. Narcissists feed on pain. Autistic people, once they realize that they've hurt you, they try to figure out how to fix that. Autistic people will mimic you because they're trying to fit into social norms. The narcissist will mimic you because they're trying to steal your identity. Autistic people have a core. They have a core. Their core is just different from what society deems as normal. Narcissistic people don't have a core. And so I believe that the narcissistic community, just as all of a sudden they are self-aware and trying to help, are now invading this vulnerable population of the autistic community and pretending to be autistic. Autistic people do not switch up. They're consistent in their autism. Narcissistic people switch up depending on the situation. Well, I hope that this topic has been helpful to someone in distinguishing between narcissism and someone that's within the vulnerable population of autism. And just like narcissism is on a spectrum, you have the baby narc, you have the mid-grade narc, and you have the high-grade narc. Autism is also on a spectrum. But like I said, one of the key differences is autism is consistent. Their behavior, the way they respond to people, is consistent. And they have the capacity to think about it and say, wait a minute, and try to figure it out. Narcissism is not consistent. They camouflage themselves. They switch up their mask depending on the situation, depending on what they're trying to gain, depending on how much energy they need at the time. They have the capacity to switch it up. Very demonic spirit. Autism is a very innocent spirit that doesn't quite connect to social norms. I hope that this video has been helpful on this topic. And I do want to emphasize that I meant no harm as far as the autistic community is concerned, that I respect other people's journeys. But the way the narcissism is trying to slither into the autistic community is very disturbing to me. So you got to read the energy. Autistic energy is not dark, demonic, and deceptive. Narcissistic energy is. Yeah? Autistic energy is innocent, awkward. They may not fit in. They may be outcast and things of that sort. They may be blunt and bold, but they're not demonic. Whew. Well, that's all I have for you today here on Closing the Gap. We make a conscious effort to meet you where you're at on your healing and your spiritual journey. If you like my energy, please don't forget to like, subscribe. Please, on this topic, leave a comment because I want to hear from the autistic community. I want to know what they're feeling in this world of narcissism and empathy and And if you're really feeling my vibe, please don't forget to hit the bell notification so that you know the next time that I upload. We'll see you later here on Closing the Gap. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for being here and thank you for listening. We'll chat with you later. Bye-bye.